Eric Blake. So, Bill, you've already shared your memories as an apprentice writer on Cheers. To be precise about this, I was a freelancer who was invited to do spec scripts for Cheers. Um, who would have written officially had the show continued? I think there's a pretty good chance of that. Um, Obviously, Cheers didn't continue because reasons, but as we all know, we got Frasier in its place. Were you ever in talks to come aboard to write for Frasier? Had you written for Frasier, what might you have done differently than the show as is, and how do you suspect your life today would have been different? Um, uh, First of all, I was not invited to go. I'm not entirely sure how closely Frasier and Cheers were connected to each other, but the bottom line here is not any failure on their part. It's a failure on my part. I just had enough. I just gave up. I went to the Mojave and I was flying gliders, and to the degree that I could have pursued the writing career in LA, it would have meant more years of being a limo driver and just barely being able to make the rent, and getting home at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the stress. Uh, I'm a pretty tightly wound person, and I took all of those limo rides, which were almost exclusively with enough exceptions you could count on two hands. Uh, they were taking businessmen to the airport, and they were late, and I felt obligated to get them there, and I went through it. Um, and I was 30 years old, 31 years old. I was running through the airport. I just felt this thing. I just kind of took a step, went to the doctor. Turned out I was having heart palpitations because there was so much adrenaline in my bloodstream. I was on beta blockers for a while at age 30, and that wasn't going to do it. But I'm happy to speculate about the writing thing, even though I don't want to oversell the degree that I was there. Cheers brought in a number of spec writers on a number of things. Uh, so it's not like I was in the club, but I was circling the club, and they asked me to do four of them, and that's a genuine interest. I went to meetings 3 times and spent a couple hours in pitch meetings. They don't have time to waste just to be nice to somebody they don't know. Um, so there is a possibility of a you can pursue a writing career in LA. You could. I don't think those days exist anymore. Those were the days when Cheers might have 20 million views or something on a Thursday night, and the networks don't have that kind of money because those eyeballs are not in that kind of place. I don't think there's as many shows as there used to be. There may be. Certainly, when you throw in cable, there's all kinds of stuff to write for. But you wouldn't be writing the iconic stuff. I mean, I don't know what's on Lifetime on a weekly basis, but there are plenty of dramas that have to be written, and comedies on all of these things. But it's not the same as something like Cheers, because Cheers was a cultural phenomenon, and those days are gone. Network TV does not drive cultural phenomenon. I'm not aware of the last one that was impacted by the last time I was impacted by something on network TV. Certainly, things like Game of Thrones and all of this other stuff is terrific. The problem is being a writer in this town is it's a tough life. If I had to pick, in fact, it's a no-brainer. I'd much rather be trying to make a living as a writer in Hollywood than as an actor in Hollywood. Um, but it's not an easy life, and you have to be prepared to write and write and write and write and write. This is the problem for me because I'd always get fond of a script and I'd want to get the script done, and then maybe I could be talking and doing something else. But the people who were successful weren't so much attached to their scripts as they were attached to the writing. And it's just, the best way to think of it is you would have to sit down and write 25 scripts for Cheers or Bob Newhart's show or anything like that. And you might just have to write the script, and as soon as it's finished, you have to just throw it in the fire. That's the way to think of it. Um, and when you threw enough of them into the fire, which means put them out there for them to disappear, sooner or later, if you had talent, sooner or later somebody would take a chance on you. Now, the good news about this business that doesn't make any sense is that you're on there's almost no middle ground. There's some, but not a lot. You're either inside or outside. You're either working or you're not. And if you get a script done for a major show like Cheers, now you're a comedy writer for network TV. And getting the second and third one is essentially no brainer. It's pretty much easy after that. If you can get a script on something with that kind of prestige, people are going to come to you banging on your door. Agents are going to come banging on your door because you can make them a lot of money. So it's tough, but at the very, very least, the thing about being a writer as opposed to being an actor is at least if you're a writer, you're just throwing pages of paper into the furnace and not your actual self. The hardest part about being an actor is you are the product, and there's nothing removed from it. It's kind of like being a pundit, I guess. But when you go out on an audition and they say, no, not interested, it's not like they're not interested in you. And that can be tough on the ego. And so the people I know who are successful actors in Hollywood all have the same exact attitude. It's a numbers game. They don't get attached to reads. Every now and then they'll do a read for something they really, really like. They'll audition for something they really like, and you may occasionally hear them say, you know what, I actually got a little attached to that one. But the ones who are successful, it's like baseball, you know? You've got a batting average. It's just the way it is. My friend Fritz, who's been my best friend pretty much all my life, went through many years in the Florida market and the Miami market where he was batting like 250, 300, which is unheard of. Unheard of. But at the peak of his career in the Miami market, he was batting about 300. He was getting every third thing that he auditioned for. It's unheard of. I've never, ever seen anybody who got more than 1 out of 20 or something like that. So you just have to go. The way you get to be an actor in this town, aside from all the union things and all the rest of that stuff, is you go and go and go and go and go until you have, if you have talent, then sooner or later you're going to appear in front of somebody who sees the talent and wants you. But one of the things that I've heard from Fritz and from many other actors is that, you know, they'll say, now, look, in retrospect, I'm sure a lot of this is just trying to let you down easy, but you'll hear people say, Bill, you were absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. But we were just looking for somebody whose hair was a little bit darker or blonder. And you just want to scream and just say, I can change that. We were looking for a blonde. There's tremendously unimaginative people making decisions about stuff that is, in fact, about nothing but imagination. Yeah. So that aspect of it was pretty cool. And sending in a script is not the same as going to an audition. It's not as much driving, for one thing. But as I've said before, for those of you who may be hearing this for the first time, if you are interested in making movies or being an actor, I would say that Los Angeles would be about the worst place you could possibly be. That's my personal opinion, especially in this day and age. I really do believe that. Now, when I say talent will out, when I say talent will succeed, what I mean is great talent will succeed. I've seen a number of things where I thought that's a good performance, and I've seen very few things where I said, that guy, I'm going to hire that guy. That guy I'm going to hire. Someday I'm going to hire that guy. And that's the kind of talent you have to have. If you have that, you're on your way. And there is, it's hard to put your finger on it. It really is lightning in a bottle. This guy who I mentioned a couple episodes ago, Critical Drinker, he does movie reviews in a really thick Scottish accent, but like the guys at Red Letter Media, he's good. He's got good things to say. He's got smart things to say about the movies he's talking about, but he does it in such an entertaining way that I'm just hooked on it. Same thing for another guy I mentioned, the guy who does Oculus Imperia. He does Warhammer 40,000 lore, and he reads it like a monk, and he's got Gregorian chants going on in the background because 40K is very gothic, and he's just a great voice actor. He's just good, and so those people are getting subscriptions. The problem is turning that into money in a full-time job. That is the problem. But So there are more opportunities than ever before, and at the same time, there are there are more slots, but the slots that are available are a lot shallower than they used to be. If you were a writer in the '80s and you had one episode of Cheers or Bob Newhart show or something, you were pretty much set for life. Uh, and the day of the sitcom is long gone. I mean, when I remember hearing people saying that Big Bang Theory was the most popular sitcom in America, I was really quite surprised because I didn't think that show was particularly funny. But in any event, I didn't think it was funny the way that the classics were, and that's why they were classics. All right, so let's see. I can go back to Facebook again.